just in the past year, we receive your presence and guidance for the year that is ahead of us. Lord, we submit the needs of our country before you. Give us a yearning to always move forward as we carry on our service to your people. Bestow upon us courage and humility so that we may be united in contributing to the progress of our nation as we glorify you in all that we do. Taglay ang bagong pag-asa ngayong bagong taon. Patnubayan niyo po kami sa aming gawain. Sa pamamagitan ng inyong biyayang kaalaman, naway maipadama namin sa mamamayan ang inyong pagkalinga. All these we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. The Senate choir will lead us in singing the Philippine National Anthem. Secretary, please call the roll.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Honasan, Monteveros, Lacson, Ligarda, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Po, Recto, Soto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President.
With 16 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 42nd session, Wednesday, December 13, and consider the same as approved.
Is there any objection that we first of all greet our Senate President pro tempore a happy birthday?
Oh, yes.
So session is suspended. Motion yet dispense with the reading. And consider the same as approved. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, may I call for a previous question?
Sorry for that digression. The pending motion, my dear colleagues, is that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 42nd session, Wednesday, December 13, 2017, and consider the same as approved. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Secretary, please conduct the reference of business.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letters from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 11 December 2017, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing votes of the following House bills. 5211, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Gateway UHF Television Broadcasting Inc., presently known as Gateway Television Broadcasting Inc., and doing business under the name and style of Hope Channel Philippines, amending for the purpose Republic Act No. 7223, entitled an act granting Gateway UHF Television Broadcasting Inc. a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain for commercial purposes UHF television broadcasting stations in the Philippines and for other purposes. 5176, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Saraga Integrated and Management Corporation under Republic Act No. 7478, entitled an act granting the Saraga Integrated Management Corporation of the Philippines a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain for commercial purposes radio and television broadcasting stations in the Philippines and for other purposes. 5212, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Filipinas Broadcasting Association, Inc., presently known as World Broadcasting Corporation, and the Republic Act No. 7485, entitled an act granting Filipinas Broadcasting Association, Inc., a franchise to construct, operate, and maintain for commercial purposes radio broadcasting and television stations in the Visayas and Mindanao and for other purposes. 5063, an act granting the Pangasinan Gulf Waves Network Corporation a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting stations throughout the Philippines. 4636, an act granting the Iloilo Baptist Church, Inc., a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting stations in the Philippines. 5177, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Infocom Communications Network, Inc., presently known as Now Telecom Company, Inc., under Republic Act No. 7301, entitled an act granting Infocom Communications Network, Inc., a franchise to construct, establish, operate, and maintain mobile radio systems such as radio paging systems, cellular phone systems, personal communication network, and trunked radio systems within and without the Philippines for a period of 25 years and for other purposes as amended by Republic Act No. 7940. 5064, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Subic Broadcasting Corporation and the Republic Act No. 7511, entitled an act granting the Subic Broadcasting Corporation a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting station in the Philippines and for other purposes. 5175, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Beta Broadcasting System, Inc., under Republic Act No. 8026, entitled an act granting the Beta Broadcasting System Corporation a franchise to construct, operate, and maintain radio broadcasting stations in the island of Luzon and for other purposes.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 12 December 2017 it concurred with the Senate amendments to House Bill No. 5235, entitled an act establishing a National Science High School in the city of Lawag, province of Ilocos Norte, to be known as Lawag City National Science High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 13 December 2017 it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing votes on House Bill number 6215, entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2018, and for other purposes.
To the archives.
Committee report number 218, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Public Services, Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance, on Senate Bill number 1637, with Senators Poe, Ejercito, Pimentel III, De Lima, Soto III, Escudero, and Ligada as authors thereof, entitled An Act Creating National Transportation Safety Board, prescribing its powers and functions and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval, in substitution of Senate Bill numbers 162 and 1375, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution numbers 190, 301, and 314, and the privileged speech of Senator Vicente C. Soto III on road accident delivered on February 21, 2017 by Senator Poe.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Additional reference of business. Message of the President of the Philippines. Letter of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, dated 8 December 2017, submitting for the Senate's consideration and concurrence the free trade agreement between the EFTA, European Free Trade Association, states, and the Philippines, which was signed on 28 April 2016.
Referred to the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Proposed Senate Resolution number 576, entitled Resolution Commending the Outstanding Young Men of 2017, Senator Maria Lourdes Nancy Binay.
To the Committee on Rules.
Communications. Letter from the Office of the Senate of the Philippines, transmitting to the Senate two original copies of Republic Act number 10963, entitled An Act Amending Sections 5, 6, 24, 25, 27, 31, 32, 33, 34, 51, 52, 56, 57, 58, 74, 79, 84, 86, 90, 91, 97, 99, 100, 101, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 112, 114, 116, 127, 128, 129, 145, 148, 149, 151, 155, 171, 174, 193, 194, 195, 196, 197, 232, 236, 237, 249, 54, 264, 269, and 288, creating new sections 51-A, 148-A, 150-A, 150-B, 237-A, 264-A, 264-B, and 265-A, and repealing sections 35, 62, and 89, all under Republic Act number 8424, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1998 as amended, and for other purposes, or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion, which was signed by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, accompanied by a direct veto of 6 line items.
The archives.
Letter from the Secretary Salvador C. Medialdia, dated 19 December 2017, transmitting to Congress through the Senate Republic Act number 10964 for the fiscal year 2017 General Appropriations Act, duly signed by the President and the President's Budget Action Message.
To the archives.
Second additional reference of business. Bills on first reading. 1638, entitled An Act to Strengthen the Office of the Ombudsman by establishing a retirement benefit system for the Ombudsman, his, her deputies, the Special Prosecutor, and other officials and employees performing legal, prosecution, investigation, and corruption prevention functions, augmenting employees' benefits, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, Senator Lacson.
To the Committees on Justice and Human Rights, Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, and Finance.
1639, an act amending Republic Act number 8762, otherwise known as the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, and for other purposes, Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
1640, an act declaring May 3 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Santa Cruz, province of Marinduque, in commemoration of its founding anniversary to be known as Santa Cruz Day. Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Local Government.
1643, an act promoting consumer protection and fostering competition in the telecommunications industry by prohibiting the locking of mobile wireless devices to a public telecommunications entity. Senator Win Gatchalian.
The Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
1644, an act promoting open access in data transmission, providing additional powers to the National Telecommunications Commission and for other purposes, Senator Win Gatchalian.
The Committees on Science and Technology and Public Services.
Resolutions. This is resolution number 577, resolution directing the Senate Committee on Games and Amusement, conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the controversies currently surrounding the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, with the end in view of improving current legislative efforts to revise the charter of PCSO and likewise enact appropriate legislation to put a cap on the amount spent by government agencies, offices, and instrumentalities, including government-owned or controlled corporations, in parties and other office celebrations. Senator Lacson.
To the Committees on Government, Corporations, and Public Enterprises, and Games and Amusement.
This is number 578, resolution urging the appropriate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on further increasing the ability of the country to ensure that the status and position of public officers and government employees are not being misused or abused for personal gain, and that the integrity of government posts and the discharge of a government agency's mandate and operations are shielded from improper influence and interference from personalities with vested interests and dubious reputations by looking into the application and implementation of current laws, including the Civil Service Law and the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, and of other related laws, to the revelations coming out of the internal squabble at the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office. Senator Laila de Lima.
To the Committee on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation.
This is resolution number 579, a resolution directing the appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the release of the Malampaya funds by the Department of Budget and Management without complete documentary requirements, in violation of existing laws and rules and regulations as specified in the Commission on Audits Special Report number 2017-04, Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committees on Finance and Energy.
Committee reports. Committee Report 219, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, and Finance, on Senate Bill number 1641 with Senator Trillanes IV and Ligarda as authors thereof, entitled An Act Regulating the Practice of Fisheries Profession in the Philippines, creating for the purpose a professional regulatory board of fisheries and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval in substitution of Senate Bill number 619, Senator Trillanes IV.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 220 and prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Civil Service, Governmental Organization and Professional Regulation and Finance. On Senate Bill number 1642 with Senators Poe, Trillanes IV, Legarda as authors thereof, entitled An Act Institutionalizing the Implementation of the Government Internship Program, providing funds for its implementation and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate Bill number 345, Senator Trillanes IV.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Third additional reference of business, resolution. This resolution number 580, resolution calling for the constitution of the Senate of the Philippines into a constituent assembly to propose amendments to or revision of the Constitution, and upon approval of 3/4 vote of its members adopt the same. Senator Lacson.
To the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
may I manifest that if the author agrees, may I be made the co-author of DS Resolution 580, and the manifestation contains also the intention of Senator Gringo Honasan to be a co-author.
There's being no objection from the principal author. The said senators are named as co-authors.
You recognize Senator Zubiri, Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, with the permission of Senator Ping Lacson, if I could be made also a co-author of his said resolution on the Constituent Assembly. Thank you, Mr. President.
With Senator Poe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to manifest the same, to be co-author of resolution for a constitutional 580, the Constitutional Assembly, by Senator Lacson. Thank you.
Senator Gordon.
Mr. President, I filed a resolution earlier on last year on Constituent Assembly formation on the issue of economic reforms. I firmly believe that if we're going to amend the Constitution, Mr. President, it must be for legitimate reasons. And it must be based on the fact that there must be a prioritization in this country of the issues we want to tackle when we change the Constitution. Mr. President, I just want to find out what has happened to that resolution that we filed so far as the amendment of the of constituting Congress as a Constituent Assembly to handle economic reforms, Mr. President.
If that is a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President, may we ask the Minority Leader to respond?
Yes, Mr. President, with the permission of the Majority Leader, we were chairing the Committee on Constitutional Amendments before the reorganization of the committees in the chamber. And one of those resolutions that was on the table that we were discussing was precisely the resolution of Senator Gordon. If I recall correctly, the resolution was calling for a constitutional convention.
Constituent Assembly, Mr. President.
Constituent Assembly to discuss the economic provisions, among others. Anyway, we did conduct two hearings and included in the agenda the resolution of Senator Gordon. The first question that we put on the floor on the committee hearing was, is there a need to amend the Constitution? If there is such a need, do we go through CONCON or CONAS and proceed from there? On the second hearing, Mr. President, we asked the Executive Secretary to be present in order to get on the record the views of the Office of the President. When Secretary Mijaldea appeared in the hearing, he manifested that the Office of the President has signed an executive order creating a committee to study the proposed amendments which will be submitted to the committee. And And on that last hearing, the Secretary Medialdea said, we had the executive order just signed today. There will be, if I recall correctly, 25 members of the committee to propose study and propose amendments to the Constitution. That was the last we heard, Mr. President. That is on record, and no proposal has been submitted by Malacanang until the reorganization came of the committees. We understand that up to now, there is no submission on the part of the Office of the President, but the new chair of the committee, Senator Pangilinan, has set the hearings on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday.
Mr. President, I just wanted to raise that because if we have to have a change in our constitutional convention, in our constitution, this representation, being a former member of the Constitutional Convention in 1971, has taken a position that the best way to do so would be the Constituent Assembly. Of course, that is only my opinion, Mr. President. And that we should tarry a little before we tinker around with the Constitution because it's the fundamental law of the land. And that if we're going to submit proposals in the Constituent Assembly, this must be discussed with our people. And that if any submissions are going to be made, we go into the issue of whether we want to revise or amend certain provisions of the Constitution. This representation firmly believes that we should adapt what has happened in other countries like the United States, where they have amendments piecemeal. That means the Constitution is owned by the people because the burden of understanding the provisions is not as heavy as has been the constitutional history of this country. When we changed the Constitution in 1971, it became practically a commission that was going all sorts of places. So much so that when martial law was imposed, Mr. Marcos practically took over the Constitution. He had already declared martial law at the time. And as you all know, there are many cases in the Supreme Court. They said that when the Constitution was ratified, there were jokes that, sino gusto kumain, tinaas na yung kamay. At na-ratify na po yung Constitution. I mean, of course, I'm exaggerating a bit, but there were instances like that. And I felt that very few people really understood what the Constitution was all about. And then again, in 1986 or 87, when the Constitution was again revised, or rather amended, overhauled by the revolutionary government of President Aquino. Again, Constitutional Commission members were appointed instead of elected. Again, we tinkered around with the Constitution. I remember I was with Senator Enrile, the late Senator Cayetano, and Senator Tadad, and we went all over the country and we opposed the approval of that Constitution because we figured that the people were not part of the process at that time. Again, that is only our opinion. Of course, we were defeated, but at least we tried. Now, Mr. President, before we even go into amending this Constitution now, we suggest that I hope that we could all sit together as a body where we will agree on whether we really want to amend. There is need to amend the Constitution first and foremost. Is there a need for it? I mean, there are so many priorities in this country right now, Mr. President, that has to be attended to. There is many situations like what is happening in Marawi, many disasters that cry to heaven for assistance insofar as surcease on the part of the suffering of our people, Mr. President. And therefore, Mr. President, it's important that I have to come in and give a few thoughts on this matter, if we can tarry a little, because quite frankly, I'm confused right now whether I would support the resolution of Senator Lacson, because if I'm to be asked, am I in favor of a Constituent Assembly as a way of amending the Constitution, I certainly am. But if you ask me, Mr. President, may I call for order?
We move to adjourn the other session.
Yes, Mr. President, I don't want to...
Can we ask for silence, please, as senators are debating on the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, like I pointed out, I'm in a quandary as to whether I would support it. Obviously, on principle, I'm in favor of the Constituent Assembly as a way of amending it. But at the same time, I would like to get the Senate's views on whether there is need to really amend the Constitution. The statements in the country today, the airlanes are filled with fast and furious statements on the Constitution. In fact, right now, there is the matter of now a constitutional members of a commission have been formed. I don't know if that's an animal that is approved by the Constitution. As far when I studied law, Mr. President, it was not. Obviously, it's going to be an advisory system, Mr. President. But again, in principle, I would like to ask our friends here in the body if we can address this in a solid discussion as to whether there is need to amend the Constitution, put it on the front burner over all the other issues. And remember, Mr. President, there is a forthcoming, if you are to believe the House, they're talking about impeachment. There's talk about federalism that has not been quite adequately discussed. BBL, Mr. President, it's very, very important issues, Mr. President, that we have to really ponder and discuss very well as representatives of the country, Mr. President, in this most august chamber. And certainly, there's also the issue, and I have no doubt, and I say it on all fours, Mr. President, that the Constituent Assembly is the proper way to do it, and that it must be separate, meeting separately and voting jointly, Mr. President. Voting separately, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. President. Like I said, I sometimes, Mr. President, there is noise within the chamber that distracts the mindset of this doddering old man here, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we associate ourselves with the views of the esteemed senator from Zambales. In fact, when we were chairing the committee, that was the first issue that we raised, a prejudicial question. We called for resource persons. The first issue to be tackled was, is there a need to amend the Constitution? We are not assuming that there is a need to amend the Constitution. That is not, we are not proceeding from that assumption. We are proceeding from the assumption that this is a committee hearing. We want to seek the views of everybody. That's why I described it, and I'm glad that the present chairman, Senator Pangilinan, has adopted the same tack as now the good senator from Zambales is taking. The first issue is there need to amend?
Yes.
And I assume on Wednesday, the resource persons invited will be asked that basic question, which was not finished when we were chairing the committee. So we associate ourselves fully with the views of the gentleman from Olongapo, and the present chair of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments is listening, and at least he is made aware of the sentiment of the good gentleman and our association with the sentiment of Senator Gordon. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the thoughts expressed here by the good friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Senator Drilon, who is also a very learned individual here, who has always been very, very much in point on the issues of the day, Mr. President. And so I will look forward to that meeting, Mr. President. Those points, in other words, if we must tarry, let us tarry slowly, and make sure that we do so reflectively, and we do so in the highest interest of the country and not for any other interest, such as extension of terms of congressmen, extensions of terms of presidents, or for that matter, because it has no place, Mr. President, in the discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Pangilinan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would just wish to confirm the earlier manifestation of former chairman of the Constitutional Amendments Committee and now Minority Leader, Senator Drilon, that we have scheduled a hearing of the Constitutional Amendments Committee on Wednesday, 9 a.m. At the Rector Room, if I'm not mistaken. That is this Wednesday, January 17. for the information of our colleagues.
Majority Leader. Sorry, Senator Zubiri.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, just to not to create any confusion, because I initially filed a bill, and it's being tackled by the committee on the creation of a constitutional convention. I'm preparing a letter today for the information of the chairman, withdrawing that bill, and instead we will be supporting the Constituent Assembly resolution of Senator Lacson. So within the day, Mr. President, I'll be signing the letter. But the fact it's in the hands of my staff, and we'll be filing it properly to the rules, as well as the committee of Senator Kiko Pangilinan. Thank you. So that there will be no confusion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Aquino.
Yes, Mr. President, just on the point of the gentleman from Bukidnon, we actually both filed a resolution for CONCON, no? And my resolution is still in the committee, but I understand, Mr. President, that in the deliberations for going through a constitutional change, this will be part of the points that will be discussed. I'm sure, Mr. President, many of us are open to listening to the experts, listening to each other's points of view on the matter, but I'm hoping that we can discuss that properly in the committee, whether the best way is a CONCON or a CONAS, Mr. President. I know that the first statement of the President was also in favor of a CONCON, then eventually it became a CONAS, and I think many of us have also stated both positions in different times. Hopefully, Mr. President, this can be tackled accordingly, and maybe we can all just keep an open mind when it comes time for the deliberation. But I hope, Mr. President, the possibility of pushing for a CONCON will be deliberated as well as a CONAS, Mr. President.
Senator Pangilinan.
One more point, Mr. President, if the majority leader and our colleagues would agree, may we request that the discussions earlier and the transcripts be likewise referred to the Committee on Constitution?
We have no objection, Mr. President. We concur. Therefore, we move that all the manifestations after the request for co-authorship be also incorporated into the referral to the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes and Laws.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thank you.
And let the records reflect the co-authorship of Senators Zubiri and Po upon the request for PS Resolution number 580.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, I move to transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders Senate Bill 1636 under Committee Report 213.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, approved.
I move to consider Senate Bill 1636 under Committee Report 213.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
An act requiring public telecommunications entities to provide nationwide mobile number portability to subscribers.